all mad, and the fever and the mad is mad. The heroes of our out through every stew.
Look at that. It worked out.
Wow, that was the best edit I think we've ever done, John. So good job. Good evening, Rio. Welcome.
Oh, well, you know, I feel like I'm second on the bill after that fantastic trailer.
Oh, jeez. No.
Never.
There's
Never.
a comic book I wanna read. Baseball, or was it werewolves? We got break.
Hey, it looks. That's the whole thing, right? No, it's some carny freaks. So that's the Wolfman from the carnival. But yeah, it's kind of designed to look like a more of a werewolf type guy for sure. So.
Oh, that's great. No, I wrote a novella called The Angels, and Cemetery Dance published it. God, when was that? 7 years ago or something. But it was about this 1950s baseball team, like, you know, minor league baseball team, and the superstar on the team went into a real, you know, I mean, he lived for baseball. That was all he wanted to do, and it was the only thing he was ever really any good at. And he hit into this like really bad slump. You know, he was riding pine for like, you know, 3 weeks, couldn't get back into the game, and then he ends up going to this sort of witch, I guess, for the want of a better word, sort of mystical woman who gives him a concoction to basically get him out of his slump, but he has to make certain sacrifices. And obviously his game picks up, but his state of mind goes into decline.
Yeah.
And it was a sort of, I guess, a commentary on how badly do you really want something and how much you're willing to give up to get that thing, you know. And this guy Hank was willing to give up pretty much everything. So it's an enjoyable story. But that reminded me a little bit of that. So I'm very excited.
I was just gonna say, no, I gotta check that out because honestly, that sounds so close to Deadball. No. You know, in our series, you know, his career gets cut short due to an injury. It takes place in the Deadball era there, and he makes a deal with the magician at the carnival who runs the carnival, you know, to get his career back, but he has to return the favor later on. So it sounds very similar.
You know, there's a lot of, I guess, baseball novels like that where, what was the one with the guy? Was it The Year the Yankees Lost the Pennant? Was it that one? Have you ever read that one?
No.
The guy who basically makes a deal with the devil for and I think he's playing maybe for the Red Sox. I can't remember. I've read the book, but so long ago. And it's a similar sort of thing. I think they made a movie out of it, and the movie might have been called Angels in the Outfield or something like that. But I remember discovering that when I was sort of towards the end of this novella I was writing and thinking, oh my God, that's my idea, or somebody got to it first, which is probably what you just experienced when I was telling you.
When you were explaining it, I'm like, oh, geez.
Yeah, man. I think it's different enough, guys, where you're okay.
It was,
I can't wait. You're good. Congrats, man. That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Love the artwork as well. That's lovely stuff.
That's Ruggiero, man. He flaked on us. He's got dad duty, I think, this evening. So
No, understandable. No worries. You tell him.
He's watching.
Well, you know, it's not going to be the same without Ruggiero in bed, drinking whatever Corona or whatever it is. You know, I think he was somewhere. He was in like Barbados or something last time, or Miami.
Was
Or
that
something.
the show where? Oh, was that the show where he was like in the bed?
Yeah, yeah. He's very relaxed.
Yeah. Oh man.
That could be our new angle, live from the bed, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, hey.
A lot of Deadball was based on a series. My inspiration when I was talking with John was the series Carnival on HBO with Nick Stahl. It was like that Depression era carnival sideshow. So I wanted to incorporate that feel with baseball. So it was just worked out. So if there's an inspiration came from that too. So
I think you can incorporate anything with baseball and it'd work.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that was our goal. That was the whole idea for that, right? Is like I was writing this baseball story. Joel didn't know it. He randomly came to me and said, "Hey, I think we should do a comic book with like a baseball character." And I was like, "Are you shitting me?" I was like, "I got to tell you what I'm doing here." And then he was like, "I think it'd be cool to have it take place in the Deadball era." And I'm like, "Yeah, that could work." And I took the idea I had, I put it in the Deadball era, and then when we started talking about the carnies and whatnot, I'm like, man, this just all fits so perfect. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Well, congrats, guys, and best of luck with it. When does it come out?
Well, it's all done. We just there's a huge printing delay in comics right now.
Right.
Paper delay, I should say.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's done. I mean, it's ready. We got it lettered professionally from Ed Dukeshire well, he does most of this stuff for Boom Studios, I think, but he does some image series as well. But so it's ready to go. We're excited. So we're gonna hopefully the paper shortage isn't gonna take it stall it too long here. We'll see. But
yeah.
Anyways, though, we're not here to talk about us. I know we played our trailer selfishly, but
no, great.
We're here to talk about this No Second Chances, which I've been hyping up all week on social media. So, so if anyone remembers, you came on our show in the late summer. I want to say it was to promote refrigerator full of heads. And I can't talk tonight. And then so that led me to discover Lola on Fire, which I absolutely loved. I hadn't read any of your novels yet. This is how I discovered you, and I talked about how cool it was that comics led me to discover your prose work and became a fan. So I pre-ordered No Second Chances as soon as you promoted it, and it's just freaking balls to the wall. Like it's straight up thriller. I mean, it's just nonstop action. So I mean this when I say it. I said it's one of the best thriller books I've read in years. Like I was hooked from page one. So
that's great. Thank you so much, John. That's great to hear. Very very rewarding to get feedback like that. It's good. It's good. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I have a lot of questions about the book. And I actually wanted to start out by asking. I read the essay you wrote about how you develop your villains, your antagonists, and whatnot. About how you essentially treat it like a late night show interview. You talk to your characters to try to help develop them a bit. And I thought about that. I'm like, man, that is a great idea. So I'm curious because a lot of people are saying Johann Fly is one of the best villains they've seen in quite some time. What sort of conversations did you have with him? I mean, how that character, he's quite something. So
piece of work. Well, it's honestly, you get so much time to yourself, or maybe in the shower, or if you're driving to the store, or I'm out in the hot tub or something like that, and I think about my characters and quite a lot, and where they're going in the story, and and I it's like I pick their brains a little bit and sort of say to them, well, why do you want to do this? What's the reasoning behind this? Is there another way you can proceed here? And then they'll tell me their reasons. Obviously it's me talking to myself. Ultimately, we all know that, but that's what storytelling is.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I come to write those scenes, I know their thinking behind their decisions, so it makes it easier to jump into their heads and fully represent them on the page. Johan is a complex character. He's the son of a Danish billionaire, very proud of his Norse ancestry, believes he's for all intents and purposes, he is a Viking. He models himself on a Viking, even has a replica Viking axe that he carries around. He's got the tattoos and the braided beard. And he's entitled and used to having things going his own way. But so there's all this shimmer and shine about him, but there's on the inside as well, there's a great darkness. You can tell that here's a guy who's probably very unhappy at heart. We see a little bit of him as a young kid. And when we had our conversations, a lot of them had to do with, his childhood and who he was rebelling against and why did he feel he had a point to prove, and what was it about his Norse ancestry, the anger, what sort of anger was he suppressing, and what did he hope to realize by exploring those roots. And we had some good conversations about it, and a lot of those conversations obviously didn't make their way into the book as such, except they did because they fully represent who Johan is. They're the scaffolding of his character, and it was a lot of it was enlightening, and I same with all my characters, with Kitty and Luke Kingsley as well, who were the protagonists. But they were pretty much, I wouldn't say self-sufficient, but I had fewer conversations with them. Certainly they weren't less interesting. That's not what I wanted to say, but I kind of had a good sense of who they were and what they were doing. But Johan was definitely an enigma that I wanted to sort of dig into and really understand. And sometimes we would have. I remember I was talking to Joe Hill about this once, and I was saying, I sit down and I sort of interview my characters. I'll talk to them if I'm in the shower. And he says, you know what, I do something similar, right? But I have, he calls them dialogue trees, where he just writes out pages and pages of dialogue between two characters. And it's nothing else. There's no, there's no exposition, there's no description or anything like that. It's just one line of dialogue after another. And most of that dialogue won't make it into the story, but he determines so much about the characters through those lines of dialogue that he finds that when he comes to write them, it's so much easier. So it's a very similar thing, except Joe writes it down, and I do sometimes, but mainly I'm, if I'm doing the dishes upstairs or loading, the laundry or whatever, folding the laundry, it's just, I got to find ways to entertain myself, and my characters will pop into my head, and it's not like I'm talking out loud to them. It all goes on inside my head, but I'm like, okay, so why did you do that? You could have left the axe at home. You know that, right? And then he gives me his reasons. Yeah, but that had to be done. I had to make a point, right? I had to prove a point. What sort of man would I be if I didn't, put my foot down? I mean, oh, come on, man. This is the 21st century. What are we doing here? You can't just pick up an axe and decapitate someone. That's not how it's done. That's not diplomacy.
Right.
So it was, it was interesting, and it was a lot of fun, and really got to know Johan very well, as I do with all my characters. Yeah.
I love the idea of it. I mean, obviously, like, when I'm trying to write, I'm trying to think out, how to get to that next idea, like to that next part of the story, right? But I never really thought of it like that, to like, have a mock conversation with them. So I'm gonna try it next time I'm writing.
You might feel a bit silly the first time you do it, but stick with it.
Yeah.
And it, honestly, I'd be getting to bed at night, and you put your head on the pillow and just bring the character forth, and talk about what happened that day. And then drop off to sleep, and it's great. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I do that with scenes. That's what I'm like, all right, okay, this is where I'm getting, and then I'm like picturing a scene in my head, and then I'm like, gosh, shit, I'm sleeping. I forgot what I was thinking about. But yeah, no, that's great. My wife already, actually earlier tonight before the show, half an hour before the show, our dryer is messed up right now. It's a brand new dryer, like 2 years old, and it's not drying clothes. So I'm sitting there on the couch, and she's talking about it, and she just looked over at me, and she's like, where is your mind right now? What are you thinking about? And I'm like, I didn't want to say, yeah, I'm thinking about the story that I'm working on right now. Sorry, I'm not thinking about the dryer.
Yeah.
You know, but Johan he's a great character, and to your point, like all the characters in the book are just awesome. They're so well fleshed out and developed. So
Thank you.
Kitty and Luke are great. I was picturing, I know everyone does this, they picture like someone playing the character when you're reading, and I don't know why, but I pictured Zendaya as Kitty the whole time. I don't know, the girl from Spider-Man, and she's in a bunch of stuff now, Euphoria or whatever. So that's who I pictured as Kitty when I was reading the book.
I've heard that. There's a guy on Instagram who, when he promotes books, he always casts them, and he cast, he puts the pictures up, and I just read this great book, and I think these people would play him in the movie, and he casts Zendaya as Kitty.
No kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, in my mind, I actually had like a young Pam Grier, as she was in what's it, Coffee, right? Is it Coffee? Yeah. Yeah. Foxy Brown, with the afro, just beautiful, strong black woman, and that was how I saw her. I didn't see a 2020 actress at all in the role. I couldn't get beyond a young Pam Grier. She had the groove, right? She had that streetwise groove about her, which I kind of liked. But this guy also cast Christian Bale as Luke, and I thought that was quite good as well.
That's cool.
Christian Bale with the beard and a little bit scruffy looking, and I thought he was a pretty good. He was a pretty good Luke Kingsley. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's nice. It's nice to fantasize about these things if they ever do make a movie.
Right.
See what they do, but I wouldn't say no to Zendaya. I could say that if she wants to play the role of Kitty, I'd be very, very.
I mean, she's like the biggest thing in Hollywood right now. So
that's a bonus, right? But she's also a fantastic actress. So just she would be great. She's got the right look for sure. The right just vivaciousness about her.
Yeah, right? I feel like personality-wise, just the way she acts, like she. Exactly. I felt like she would come across perfect in that role. So
she'd be great.
Yeah, sorry, Joel, I'm doing it again. I'm just like talking nonstop here.
No, I love it. So I was listening in. So yeah, I would say. What were when you went through No Second Chances, what were some of the largest challenges that you had in this novel, maybe that you haven't experienced writing in the past, but that may have come out through this one?
I think, the first thing that really jumps out at me would be the setting for this one. This was the first book that I set in California, in Los Angeles. And, I grew up in the UK and I live in Canada now, been to California a few times, but I wouldn't say I know Los Angeles. This isn't a city I'm familiar with, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. And if nothing else, I'm always one to rise to a challenge. And I'd set stories in countries I'd never visited before, and always managed to pull it off. I thought, what's the difference here? And I knew that the second half of the book was going to kind of lead out of the city. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe somewhere else in California. It actually goes off into the Mojave and then into Nevada for perhaps the last third of the book. So I was thinking, God, I only have to it's only half of the book. I need to, blag my way through here if I can. But, I read a lot of books set in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and, fiction and nonfiction. And obviously I had been, and I actually started writing the book in Los Angeles. I was in the Viper Room, sitting at the bar with my notepad and pen, and that's where I started. I mean, you don't get much more Hollywood than that, and it was just,
right.
I got a great vibe, and got very drunk that day. And so that was where it started. So it did feel quite natural. And obviously there was a lot of research done. I have to say, Google Earth, it's an amazing tool. It's not, you can't really depend on it to get the sort of the feel of a place, but to get, the look of a place, it's pretty good. And I used Google Earth, and like I said, a lot of books that were set in and around Los Angeles, plus a little bit of creative license as well. There are certain, places and street names that I've made up so that, because it better fit the story. John, you'll know because you've read the book, but there's a scene in a junkyard. And that's all, from my head.
That's one of my favorite scenes, by the way. I love those type of scenes where it's like, hide and seek type scenes, right? Just the suspense. Like those are like my favorite to write too. I love that whole scene. I don't want to spoil anything, but
no, I'm not going to say too much. But that was also a great scene to write, and it was one of those scenes that when I had an idea in my head of how it was going to go, and then when I'd finished it, it seemed to me at least that it was much better than I'd even imagined it being, and more impactful. So that's always nice when that happens. But that's obviously all that salvage yard is completely fictitious, and it's in a fictitious part of town. So a little bit of creative license, but it's still a big challenge, because there's so many things that you don't even think about necessarily when you set out to write a book. The smell in certain neighborhoods, the types of trees that grow, the types of flowers, the things when you open your door, what's the first thing you see? The direction the planes are flying in, when they take off out of LA, little things like that. You don't suddenly you go to describe it and you're like, hold on, is that right? Am I going to get called out by somebody like born and bred in Los Angeles? They say, well, actually planes from LAX take off and they fly, So it was a lot of stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I just ran with it. And I will say that the most important thing, or the safety net I always had, was knowing that my buddy Chris Ryle, I think you've had him on the show before. Have you had Chris Ryle on the show? You know who he is?
No. Yeah, I know who he is. No, we have not.
Yeah, so he's a California boy, born and bred, knows Los Angeles like the back of his hand. And, he was always going to be my first reader on this. So to be able to know that I had the safety net of bouncing it off a native Californian was good, because I knew he'd pull me up on anything that didn't ring true. So, like I said, I was able to run with it a little bit and use a bit of creative license, but it did present a challenge that I'm not used to having, because, when I write a book, I pretty much know the area for the most part, whether even the temperature, the time the sun sets, little things like that, it was all a little bit different in California.
I can't even imagine. Yeah, I've only been to LA once, so I'm no one to judge, but I wouldn't have known that you didn't, that you took liberties in any spots there. I feel like Christopher Golden lives in the Arctic though, because he writes a lot of his books in the snow. So that just popped in my head when you're like, you're writing about the scenery, and I know you're friends with Chris, so I just.
But how easy is it to write in the snow? It's cold and it's white.
Yeah.
It's not like you want the Arctic, it's up right up here.
Exactly. Yeah. It was. It's definitely a good challenge, and glad to have. That was the other thing as well. You say you didn't realize that certain things were made up. There's a scene in the book where they go to a Hollywood party, right? And I'm like, man, I've never been to a Hollywood party. How am I gonna write this? I don't know what happens at a Hollywood party, but then I thought, probably 99% of the people who read this book won't have been to a Hollywood party. So, no one, I'm not going to call you up on that. You'll be all right. Just run with it. And so I did.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
At that Hollywood party, actually.
Nope. I went to the after party for the roast of Charlie Sheen for Comedy Central. That was the closest thing I went to for a Hollywood party out there. But
that's pretty close.
That was cool. But that was at a bar, so it wasn't like was it some like mansion or anything. But
right.
But yeah, no, that scene I was wondering there, because obviously you name dropped some famous names in there. Do you ever get worried about like if they were ever to say anything like, oh, you're supposed to meet me with associating me with, these guys sitting here doing, these enhancer drugs.
Yeah, well, I was very careful to make sure that the drug use at that party was done, in a clandestine way. And the guy was making sure he was doing it away from his guests, because it's it's this taboo thing. Nobody wants to know. He doesn't want anybody to know that he's doing it. Yeah, there was a lot. The famous names, the movie stars and music stars, and all of the other name dropping in the book. It's probably half and half between real people and made up famous people. So, but it was originally all real people. But my editor and the legal department at HarperCollins flag stuff that they're just not sure about. 99 times out of 100, it's probably not going to present a problem, but just to be on the safe side, anything that might be even deemed slightly, or even in a very passing fashion, sort of somewhat demeaning to anybody's character, they'll flag that. So yeah, I had to change the names of a few of the celebrities. I was like, that doesn't say anything. That's fine. God, that guy probably is an asshole. It's a matter of opinion. What the hell? What are you going to do?
Right.
But yeah, so they flagged they flagged a few of those things. So we ended up changing it. But yeah, who's going to read this book? That no one's going to read it.
Hey, I was just going to say, it's good publicity too. If one of the actors or actresses, was it was in the news that they were going after Rio for being in his book, that people would be like, "What's this?"
Yeah, it's not a bad problem to have. We can hope. We can hope, right? See what happens.
Just put him in the right. Just cast him in the film. That's all right. So
yeah.
Oh man,
I had all of the celebrities. We're all well behaved, and they're not associated with any wrongdoing.
Right.
I don't think they can come after me for anything. So
no, because I'm sure they've been to parties where people do stuff even if they don't. It's Hollywood, like to the point of the book. So
I would think so.
Yeah, but like you said, we haven't been to those parties, but that's just what we assume based off what we've seen in movies and read, I guess. But you make up a lot of, and I saw someone tweet this, that they were more impressed or just as impressed with how many fake titles you came up with for movies as they were the book itself. Were they just random titles you came up with, or did you actually kind of think through like the idea of like the movie of the title?
I mean, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they have to sound like what they are. I can't remember the names of some of the titles now. I know there was a BBC drama called Heron Keys. And I thought that sounds exactly like the title of a BBC drama. So it's got to fit, right? And some of the comedy shows, again, I can't remember the titles, but one was a Fox comedy called Robot in the Family or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I thought, that sounds like a Fox TV show, Robot in the Family.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. Sometimes I'd be there. I mean, you read it in seconds, but sometimes it took me like half an hour to come up with a title, even longer.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing, because and it doesn't really matter. Like, you can call it anything. You can call it 3 X's and an O or something. No one's gonna call you. But it was nice that guy. I saw that tweet too, and it's nice when somebody notices that, because there is actually a lot of effort that goes into those little things that most people will just read past and go straight beyond and not even think of it again. So, someone once said to me, every sentence you write is going to hit somebody somewhere, and you may think it doesn't mean anything, it's just another sentence, but someone's really gonna pick up on it. And in other words, make every sentence that you write mean something, make it worthwhile. Don't waste your words. And it kind of rings true with that as well. It does seem like a small detail, but I think that the effort you put in to those small details does actually translate to the reader.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'd watch a few of those movies if they came out. So
Yeah. I do apologize. I've got a flickering light. I don't know if you've noticed that. Have you noticed my screen flickering a little bit?
No, not really. Oh yeah, a little bit. Now that you just said that, I didn't notice it. But
We got this poltergeist that's been in the house for about 2 years, and
oh man,
it always plays out when I do podcasts. So
Oh, man.
Sorry about the flashing lights.
All good. So after you complete, a novel like this, Rio, do you immediately hop right back into writing, or do you take like a breather, like a month or two after it comes out? Like, what does that look like in terms of, I don't know, your production or lifestyle? Like, what's the normal approach or something like that?
Well, there are always edits and stuff like that, and so by the time the novel's actually finished, you've usually like halfway through another, like properly finished, all the edits are done, and it's gone off to production at the publishing company. You're usually halfway through, 3/4 way through a new novel. So we'll let's say you've got it to the point where you've sent it off to your editor, and now you're waiting on those edits. So like the most of the heavy lifting is done at that point. Yeah, I usually take a few days, but there's always a few projects that have been backing up while you've been writing the book, short stories, whatever, interviews and things like that, that it's good to be able to finally have time to clear them off your plate. And they're nice as well because it's something different, and it's, you don't have to, you spend so long thinking about your novel. It's nice to actually think about something else for a little while. With No Second Chances, when that was finished, I pretty much went straight to work on the comic book, actually, Refrigerator Full of Heads. I was finishing up Sleeping Beauties in terms of edits and things like that, and running through the scripts, and then we were Joe and I were sort of working on pitches for Refrigerator Full of Heads, and then we were pretty much straight into it. So there wasn't a lot of time to put the feet up and play my guitar or play video games or whatever. It was straight back to work. And then after, I didn't do anything except write that comic for about 5 months solid. I didn't write anything even remotely prose, except for a few edits on No Second Chances when they came in. And then when I finished the comic, I had to write a story for a friend of mine, Mark Morris, and it was like I'd forgotten how to write prose. I really couldn't engage the muscle. I couldn't get the car into gear at all. It was a real struggle. I was so stuck in comic mode. I was like, Jesus Christ, I've actually forgotten. But it is like a muscle, right? It's like going to the gym and you haven't done, whatever, you haven't curled any weights for 6 months or whatever, and then you lift that 25-pound dumbbell and it feels like it weighs about 150 pounds, right? Like, Jesus Christ, I used to curl these. So you just got to get the muscles back up and running again, which I did, and we got the story done. It didn't help that it turned into an 11,000 word story. I was like, I thought I could get it done in 3,000 or 4,000 words, and then 11,000 words later, I'm still writing it. But it turned into a really good story. Actually, I'm quite happy with that one. It's about this baseball player who has an accident in the Deadpool era, back in the Deadpool era, and so he goes to this carnival, right, and he meets a werewolf, and that's all I'm saying.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, it sounds like Deadball. No, you between Refrigerator Full of Heads and No Second Chances, I mean, you must have the Viking stuff down. I was going to ask if there was any coincidence, if it was a coincidence, or if anything kind of popped in your head as you were writing. But obviously, timeline wise, you finished the book and then went into the comic series. But
yeah, it was a complete coincidence. Yeah, I was, when Joe and I started talking about me doing the sequel to Basket Full of Heads, I was just finishing up No Second Chances, the first draft. So, I hadn't read Basket Full of Heads at that point, and he told me it was about this cursed Viking axe. And I thought, oh, wow, that's crazy because, I'm doing this thing at the moment and there's a Viking axe in it. And I was a little bit worried that there might be some sort of, conflict of interest, and Joe might say, "Oh, maybe we should keep you away from this project."
Oh.
So I didn't tell him that I just finished. I was just in the process of finishing this book. But it was good because there is some, Norse legend stuff going on in Refrigerator Full of Heads, and there's not a lot of that in No Second Chances, but it is sort of mentioned. And again, these conversations I had with Johan and him being very much in touch with his Norse ancestry, he, it was good that I knew all of that stuff. And certainly for Refrigerator Full of Heads, the fact that I had recently researched a lot of that definitely came in handy. But it was a pure coincidence. Yeah, it wasn't like Joe said, "What can we do?" And I'm like, "You know what? I'm writing this Viking story right now. How about we do something with all of these other Viking legends?" It was just pure coincidence.
So we're not going to see a cameo from Johan in the final issue of Refrigerator Full of Heads. Timeline-wise, that wouldn't make sense. No, the series takes place way before the book. But,
I don't think Johan's even bought one at that point. It's like 1984, yeah.
Right. Oh, man. Well, I did want to talk about the comic series a bit, too, if you don't mind. I mean,
cool. Yeah.
I love it. I know when we had you on last time, that was right when issue 1 had come out.
Right, yeah.
And I think I don't have to worry about spoilers for issue 1 at this point. I had hinted at there was something that happened that I hope came up later in the series, and I was referring to the shark. So in the last issue, I'm not going to spoil anything, but some stuff happened that involved that, and I'm like, I can die happy now. Like that's all I wanted was that to come back up later in the series. So I was just hoping that happened. So, but
I'm glad we checked that box for you. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Awesome. You don't put a still living severed shark's head in a book and then not use it in some way.
Right. Okay. Well, that was my thought. I'm like, as soon as the head got cut off, I'm like, that please get used later on, because
you've got to use it, right? I mean, yeah. So that whole comic book is just one. I mean, I had so much fun with it, and all I really wanted was for readers to have fun with it too. And I think most people get it. Basketball Heads, in comparison, is quite serious. It feels like quite a serious take on the Viking acts, and even though when I read it, it was completely batshit crazy, and I thought, this is the craziest, most fun thing I've ever read.
Yeah.
But now, compared to Refrigerator Full of Heads, it actually seems quite tame. But Refrigerator Full of Heads has been, I wouldn't say it's divisive in regard to the way it's been received, but some of the reviews have been brutal, like brutally bad, like they hate it. And I think because they were expecting more, I think the craziness has caught them off guard. Refrigerator Full of Heads is, I always thought of it as being, Basket Full of Heads is kind of like The Evil Dead, and Refrigerator Full of Heads is like The Evil Dead 2. So it's set in the same, it has this, a lot of the same setting, it has a lot of the same feel, but it's completely crazy. Like this, they're obviously in the same universe, but they're almost two separate things. That was definitely deliberate on my part, because I wanted it to feel separate. I didn't want it to be just a mirror image of what Joe had already done. We wanted different characters. I wanted the same setting because it felt like going home. I wanted the character to feel like they were going to a place that they'd been before and that they kind of knew. So like going, returning to a favorite vacation spot. But I wasn't really interested in doing anything too serious. All I wanted to do was have some fun. And I said, there definitely a few of the reviews have been less than favorable, but for the most part, a great majority of the reviewers seem to have got what, myself and the rest of the team have been trying to do with this, which is just, go crazy and have some fun and not take it too seriously. So that's good. I've stopped reading reviews anyway.
From most of the people that I follow on Twitter in the comic industry, like reviewers and they've all all the people I've seen talk about it have liked it. So like I know Comic Crusaders, they're pretty they got a pretty big following, like 20,000+ followers, and they loved it. So I mean, how can you, if you're gonna go to the comic shop and pick that cover up and expect it to not be over the top? I mean, that's hilarious.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
The first 3 pages of that one, this issue 3, and the first 3 pages of that, I think I just laughed my way through the whole, however long it took me to write those pages.
It's basically, just because the deer gets hooked on the deer. Yeah, I was cracking up.
It's just, that's what I mean. Like, at that point, like if you get to that point, that's the beginning of issue 3. So you've done 2 full issues. And if you still think you're reading a serious, horror comic at that point, then, maybe you should put it down and go read Arkham Asylum again or something like that,
Exactly.
To me, it's got kind of like almost like an EC Comics old feel to it. Like, you knew going into that comic that it wasn't anything very, very serious. Like, it kind of had an element of, fun and just kind of zaniness to it that was coming along with that. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, that was definitely the take I got from Basket Full of Heads too. It had that EC Comics feel to it, very much almost like a creep show vibe. And yeah, I was just interested in building on that, and I just saw a way that we could just have some fun and go even like, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but it hasn't started getting crazy yet.
Nice. Yeah.
Have you read issue 4? Have you done that one?
Oh, I always try to prepare and pull out what I think I would want to pull up. Yes, I have.
Right.
So issue 4 is wild. And it seems like issue 5 is gonna be pretty wild too. So
we're probably like, if it's the Spinal Tap amp, we're probably up to about 7 so far.
Nice.
So we got at least 4 more degrees of craziness to go, because of course it goes up to 11, as you know.
How many issues is it? Is it 6?
Yeah, it's 6. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
There's 2 more to go. I think number 5 is out March 15th.
Perfect.
Oh, very nice.
Not too long to wait.
Yeah.
If it makes you, I'm not trying to. I mean, I guess I am trying to pump you up a bit here today. I keep, praising you, but that's the only comic I have on my pull list right now. So I make sure, because for issue 1, I'm like, it'll be there. Like, I'll go earlier in the day, and I went down and it wasn't there, and we were having you on the show. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! Like, I need to read this. So I downloaded Comixology because of that, of issue 1 not being in the store, and then I finally found it later on. But when I went, I was like, can I just sign up to get this pulled for me every issue? So
I don't know if there's been a problem with distribution or it, but I've had a few people say to me, they haven't been able to find it, and is it out? And I don't know. I mean, I get all my comics on Comixology.
Yeah.
I do have a comic book store. It's about 20 miles from here, but it's just, I don't, I'm not going to drive all the way out there to pick up a comic. I'll go every couple of months. Do you know what I mean? And pick up 8 or 9 comics at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know what the deal is with the distribution, but a few people have said that it has been hard to get hold of, which is surprising, but I don't know. So I don't really know.
Well, I think it depends on the shop too. I mean, I think my local shop, I feel like if it's not a superhero comic, they only get a handful of them, so they sell quick if, you don't get there. So yeah, I learned from my mistake, and I lucked out, because I'm like, man, I want every issue like in paper form. Like, I don't want to have issue 1 digital and then have issues 2 through 6, paper. But
yeah,
I lucked
out. I guess you could
so.
always get them on eBay. Well, the only print comic I get right now is Sleeping Beauty. Well, I get Refrigerator for Heads, but DC send me that one. But I get Sleeping Beauties. This is a comic I wrote for IDW, the Stephen King thing. Stephen King and Owen King, I should say. And the reason I put in an order for that, put that one on my pull list, is because when that one first came out was right in the middle of COVID, and they couldn't ship it. IDW couldn't ship copies to me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to get my own comic, So how terrible is that going to be? I need the paper version of this. So yeah, I called up my local comic book. Says 20 miles away, but I called him up and said, yeah, I just want to put in a regular order for that. And actually, issue 10 of that comes out in March, and that's the last one of that. So that run's pretty much done now. And
oh man,
yeah, it's been a pretty long, because there were months in between issues there because of COVID, distribution. There was that whole thing with, I can't even remember the name of the distributor now, where they stopped basically distributing, or
Diamond.
Yeah,
Diamond is they're falling. I don't know if they're falling apart, but there's delays almost every week. It seems like now. At the
yeah,
shop,
it was pretty bleak there. So we had some delays, but this it finally ends in March. But it has been really well received, Sleeping Beauties, for the most part, which is great. Because it was a project I was quite nervous about, with it being an adaptation of a very popular book by two very popular authors. So, and not having really worked extensively in comics, I was, and with legions of Stephen King fans out there, I wanted to make sure I did a good job. And I'm just happy with the adaptation on the whole. Yeah, it's good. It's a completely different experience to Refrigerator Full of Heads, which I guess with Refrigerator Full of Heads, Sleeping Beauties was that serious comic, and it wasn't my universe, right? I couldn't really stretch my wings because I had to, it was an adaptation. But Refrigerator Full of Heads, it's completely my story. I mean, obviously June Branch is Joe's character, and Brody Island is the setting is created by Joe. But other than that, he said, right, here's my playground, go nuts. And so I did. And it was just nice within a comic not to have the restraints that I had. And I don't mean restraints in a bad way, because adapting a Stephen King and Owen King novel is a very cool thing to do.
Sure, yeah.
The restraints you want, but you don't have the liberties that you would get, obviously, when you're creating your own stuff. So to be able to go a bit nuts with Refrigerator Full of Heads was, I took advantage of that. I think that's the reason it's probably maybe even a little bit too crazy in places, but
no, man. So between that and Vinyl and Plastic, which were through Image Comics, Doug Wagner wrote those. They're over the top, horror with splashes of comedy, like a lot of comedy, So like, I don't know. When I read a comic, I kind of enjoy the over the top stuff,
Me too. Me too. That's exactly what I want in a comic book. So I pretty much wrote, and I do this with my novels as well. I write the kind of comics I want to read, and I write the kind of novels I want to read. So if that's a crime, then consider me guilty.
Apparently we have the same taste, because I'm digging it. So.
Have you and Joe talked about that universe for Basket and Refrigerator extending beyond this story arc, or has that come up as of yet, or is this it once this is done, or are you not at liberty to say? Or
No. I mean, no. Joe and I haven't spoken for a while. He's been so busy with other projects. Like, we email quite regularly, but it's all to do with this comic, and everybody's focused on this now. And Tom Fowler is working on the art for number 6 as we speak. And I've seen the layouts, and the guy's amazing. Like, that's actually my favorite part of the process. I love scripting it, but when you first see those layouts and you see exactly what Tom has in mind for, framing the pages, like, it's just, that's where my jaw drops. Like, and then when he inks it in, that's great. And then when the colors come in and the letters, that's all great. But for me, the best part is the layouts, where you first see how it's going to look, how it's framed. And Tom is an incredibly talented artist. And yeah, he's been a real, it's been a real treat to work with him. And he's got a great storyteller's mind as well, visual storytelling. Because, I'll script it, and he instinctively knows how to frame it in a way that advances the story in a more visual fashion. because I'm still coming from a novelist's perspective with pretty much everything I do. And so he's not afraid to sort of switch the camera to the other side or cut that panel out, but you show it here in this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there were a few occasions, not often, but a couple of times each issue where he said, it's better to just drop that panel and we can show the action here with a bigger panel, sort of thing. He's just, and I guess some writers might get precious about that sort of thing and say, hold on a second, I'm not having you can't be cutting. But all I want out of this is for it to be the best experience for the reader as possible. And when I look at what these layouts as Tom does them, and they're better than they were in script form, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm like, oh, that's good for me. Yeah, no problem. Great. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, so he's really added a lot to the whole experience for me, and it's been a thrill to work with him. Bill Crabtree, those colors are incredible, and really everybody at DC. It's been a really good experience. So professional, really good, and it's amazing because you get these, you got like 3 days until it has to go off to the printers, and you're like, we're never going to get this done, and then everybody just knuckles down and it's done. They turn it around and it looks fantastic. And yeah, it's great. It's been a great experience with a great team. I'd love to work again with them. Very long answer to your question, Joel. But I would love, with this comic, we've set up something that can expand. Should DC, Hill House, Black Label choose to run with it, whether or not I'll be involved, I'd love to be. I can't say because it's not my not my stuff, right? I write it, but it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Joe and it belongs to DC. So it's up to those guys.
What would be another one of Joe's playgrounds that you would want to play around with based on his work? If there was some other one that you were to dip your toe into?
Yeah, I did actually I really wanted to, and I sort of said this to Joe in a joking fashion. Well, he thought I was joking, but I was actually being deadly serious. I wanted to write a comic series based on The Fireman.
Ooh, that would be great.
I don't know if you've ever read that, but The Fireman was a brilliant novel. How visually striking would that be with the tattoos, with people bursting into flames. But the thing with The Fireman, as great a novel as it is, and it is a great novel, it was primarily set in one area, and it was I think it was like a camp or something, like a summer camp or something, right? But geographically, it was in one area of the United States for the most part of the book. But this was a worldwide pandemic, I guess you would call it, virus thing. It affected everybody in the world. And I wanted to write a comic series basically telling stories from around the world of how this disease had affected people in their lives, and have a general thread of something interlinking all the stories. I wanted to call it The Devil's Handwriting.
Nice.
Man.
Joe thought I was joking, but I was being deadly serious. Yeah. That would be a playground I'd jump into. Wanted to do that.
I think that'd be great. That sounds awesome. I love the book. I actually just saw that. I think they're making a TV show out of it too. I think.
I saw that. Yeah. I think they're making a TV show now out of everything that Joe's done, or
pretty much. Yeah. Oh yeah, Black Phone. Yeah, that looks amazing, by the way.
They've. I'm waiting for the refrigerator full of heads. Cool.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know. That might be too crazy. I don't know. I don't know if they'll make that one. Maybe Sam Raimi will do it.
All right, HBO Max, they do a lot of DC stuff, and they'll do look at Peacemaker, right? That thing's, pretty over the top, but people love it, So,
you never know. You never know, I guess. So,
yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to talk, Joel. I didn't want to cut you off.
I was if I had to answer that question, I would say I'd want to play in the Lock and Key universe, because that's one of my favorite. Just I love that. That it's the variables and different places that could go. And,
what couldn't you do, right?
Yeah. It was fantastic. It just I fell in love with that, and just a great series. So that it's nice to see it continue on in different timelines and different eras too. So
have you read the? I haven't read them yet, but have you read the Sandman tie-in yet?
Yeah.
Were they good? I haven't read them.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm like 20 miles from my LCS, so I've read like the first two, I believe, and then there was another like one shot where it's like a World War One era that kind of crossed in and tied with it, I believe, and yeah, so I'm kind of there's a few different story arcs, and I feel I might be getting lost a little bit, and then there's always the TV show, which is the deviation from the book a little bit. So yeah, it's an amalgamation in my head of where we're going.
Yeah.
I've read it. Yeah, just trying to remember. Spent a little bit on top of my reader pile of things, so I'm trying to remember exactly. But it was good. Yeah, it was cool how they were able to tie the two, and how the hell do you put these two storylines together? And they pulled it off, so it worked out.
Yeah, and also Gabe Rodriguez, like his artwork is stunning. I could just I don't even have to read the text. I could just look at the pictures in those books. They're just great, and a great team. You can tell that there's such great chemistry between Joe and Gabe.
Yeah.
That really translates on the page and obviously then to the reader. So yeah, it's been a great success for Joe, and I know he's incredibly Joe and Gabe obviously, and I know they're both incredibly proud of it. But yeah, that would be a good universe to play in. I don't think anybody's going to get to play in that universe but Joe, though, and he's done with it now. I think he's pretty much done with it. So yeah.
It's his baby, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, stay tuned. I don't know in regard to the Viking axe and the other weapons that we've introduced. Maybe something somewhere down the line. I haven't heard anything yet, but it would be nice to think it could continue, because I think we've introduced some pretty interesting weapons. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That was my first thought. Like when they were talking about all the different weapons and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, this could go on for a while if they really wanted it to. So,
yeah, kind of the idea. I didn't do that for me. When we set in the original, thinking I would get to write them, it wasn't some ulterior motive I had going on. When we sent in the original pitch to Chris Conroy, he was like, "Guys, I like it, but I kind of want to expand the universe a little bit. If we can think of a way we can build upon what this axe is about, and And I got thinking about that and how we could, where did the axe come from? He wasn't interested in like a history lesson or anything like that, but just in some way that we could, build upon the lore, I guess, of what this axe was all about. So, I had the idea of it being basically part of a set and, introducing these other weapons. And I thought, well, if they want to continue with this series, we've got some good things to play with here. So, I don't know. I heard that Hill House was basically being rebooted, and that this is supposed to be like the second season, and that Refrigerator Full of Heads was the first book in the new series, I guess, the new season. But I haven't heard that there of any more Hill House comics coming out. That's not to say that they won't be. I just don't know. I'm not in the know on that one, but and also I would think Joe he likes to sort of share the love, and I think he's done me a big favor with this, and he's great, but I think he'd probably be more likely to go, not that he doesn't like working with me or not because he doesn't like what I've done, but because he's just a kind, generous person, and he wants to, share the love as widely as possible. He's probably more likely to go somewhere else with it. And who could blame him? I wouldn't mind that at all. I'd certainly love to write more, but at the same time, I'd understand him, taking it somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
Sorry. I was gonna say, when you pop off to the local comic shop to pick it up, do they know that you wrote it, or do you keep that like on the DL? Tell them that.
Hey,
that you wrote this thing.
No, I don't tell them. No. Well, first time I went into the comic book store and was to pick up Sleeping Beauties #1, and I said, "Hi, I'm Rio Youers, and I'm here to pick up my comic." And when I say my comic, I mean my comic. They just looked at me blankly. And I was like, "Oh, okay, what is it?" I said, "Sleeping Beauties." And she goes, "Oh, I got it here," and then I just paid for it and left.
They don't even care. Yeah, they're just like, "What?"
I just don't think they clued in, which it was like, well, that was a bit weird. They probably left that. What do you mean my comic? That was a bit weird. Didn't realize, So now whenever I go in, I'm a little bit sheepish, and I just kind of want to get in, because comic book stores, I love, we all just love going in there and browsing for about 3 hours before we finally make a
Pretty
purchase.
much.
And,
You always forget what you went in for. Never got by what you actually had on your mind. Right?
But now I sort of go in sheepishly up to the counter. I just want Sleeping Beauties, and then and they give it to me, and I'm gone quickly. Embarrassed.
Yeah. Oh man, that makes me.
It's that weird guy again.
When I pick up comics for people we're having on the show, that's probably even worse then, because I'm like, yeah, we're talking to this, like when I was picking up your book, I'm like, yeah, Rio on the show, we're gonna talk to him, and it's like, oh, cool, and they're probably like, yeah, okay, buddy, like just buy the book, get out of here. Oh man.
Yeah, it's funny. You think, oh, this is gonna be I'll be doing signings at my local comic book store, and I'll be getting invitations to this comic book convention, and no, none of that. I mean, COVID obviously has something to do with that, not so many public appearances and all of that kind of thing. But yeah, not so much.
Oh man. Speaking of, all that stuff going on. So I know, because you're up north there. I just locked up my Scares at Care tickets yesterday. So I'm going to be going, but,
Great.
Yeah. So I know you probably can't make it because you're over the border there, but you've been to it before, right? I thought you said that on the last time we had you on.
Yeah, I went to one a few years ago. I can't even remember the year. But this is just the author convention, I think.
Yeah, that's the one I'm going to, is the Author Con. Yeah.
Yeah, the one I went to had the this was the horror movie actors. And authors as well, so it was like a mix. It was quite good. There were some pretty big names there, and that was a good weekend. That was a fun time. I don't think I'll be going. It's funny because I think I'm going to go down and see Brian sometime in April, but it'll probably be because it's not that far from me. I think I worked it out like door to door from my house to Brian's house, and he's somewhere in the south of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I think it's about 6.5 hours door to door, so it's not crazy. I mean, that's certainly doable.
That's not bad. Yeah.
If I left in the morning, I'd be there just after lunchtime. So it's not crazy. So yeah, we've got at least planned to go down and see Brian sometime in April. If I'd thought about it, I might have been able to work it out to go down, but he's going to be busy that weekend, so it's probably not the best weekend for me to go down.
True. Yeah, he'll probably.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to miss this one, but definitely, I would think that I'd be hopefully attending one of them in the not too distant future. It would be good to go along and be a guest again.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm excited to meet all these authors that I've had on the show, that we've had on the show. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm thinking of driving down. I don't know. I mean, the flights right now, especially with the gas prices shooting up, it's like, it was so ridiculous when I was looking at flights.
Whereabouts are you? Where do you live?
We're in New Hampshire, so it's like a 10.5-hour drive to Williamsburg.
Right. Yeah, you're even further than even further away than I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm 10 hours from you guys. When I go to Nikon, which is Rhode Island, we'll go up to see Chris Golden. That's 10 hours door to door. So yeah, and I'm only 6.5 hours from Brian. So.
Really? Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. So you're talking about driving. You could get to Brian in that time, not flying. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. The idea of flying sounds nice, but I think I might just drive to save the money and just have a road trip out of it. Play some music.
It's funny because you said I know you're up north, but I'm probably further south than you are.
Yeah, you must be. Yeah, with the timing there.
But it's just with where I am in Ontario, it dips down into the Great Lakes, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Look at it on the map. So yeah,
I've been to Chatham, Ontario. That's I drove over to Chatham, so I've been down there, Ontario.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yep. Went straight across. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. If you would, it depends on where you're driving. Sometimes it's quicker to actually cut through Canada.
Yes. Huh. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Rather than go all the way down and around and up again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just baffled that. Yeah, I guess I don't know my geography that well in my head. I would have thought you would have been further away from getting to Pennsylvania than me. But anyways, so we're past the hour mark though. So I know we wanted to check in, but I definitely wanted to bring it back to No Second Chances though before we leave, because again, I can't praise it enough. Anyone that watches this, go out and get it. If you like fast-paced, I don't even know if what you call it for genre. It's just a mix. I mean, it's got I would say it's even has some horror elements into it. When we talk about the hide and seek stuff there, it's straight up thriller though, I guess. But I was hooked from page one. It's a great story. I've been, pumping it up all over social media. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, but go get it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks for the support. Both you guys have been, great supporters and champions of my work in comics and in prose. So really appreciate it. Thanks very much. And for everybody who's watching this or listening in, whatever, go and buy the book, and hope you enjoy it.
You will.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time tonight, Rio. Keep us posted on new projects too, man. Like John and I, we always adopt everybody that we have that comes on. So whenever we,
I can share the new exclusive, actually, Winnebago full of heads.
Big.
Yeah. Hey,
Take it
go bigger.
We're going
bigger than a basket. It's bigger than a fridge. Yeah, there you go. That makes sense.
You got to get bigger. You got to get bigger.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, buddy. Stay safe. Thanks for your time tonight. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.